There are a number of big questions that have troubled mankind since the dawn of time. How did life on Earth begin? What is dark matter? Are we alone in the universe? Which empire, if it still existed, would have the best current national football team? What is consciousness? Well, today I'm going to try and answer one of those great conundrums once and for all, and as you may have gathered, it is the penultimate one, regarding which former empire would have the best current national football team. Perhaps next week I will put scientists out of their misery and clear up dark matter for them once and for all, but we'll see how this one goes first and take them one at a time. There have been a great many empires, from the Empire of Brazil, which was basically just modern-day Brazil and Uruguay and lasted only 67 years, to the Abbasid Caliphate, which ruled over modern-day Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, Qatar, Iraq, Syria, Azerbaijan, the UAE, Morocco, Tunisia, Spain and Portugal, amongst others, for more than half a millennium, all whilst having this as their flag. I mean, I would hate to offend the Abbasid Caliphate, just in case any of them might be watching, but it is very plain and black. All I'm saying is, a little bit of colour wouldn't go amiss. Helpfully, for them, I have jazzed it up a bit in case they ever make a comeback. I'm not going to take an in-depth look into every single empire that has ever existed in this video, since there have been thousands of them, depending upon your definition of an empire. Multiple empires have covered virtually identical territories, and many primarily cover territories, I'm sorry to say, that aren't very good at football. Instead, I'm going to focus on the three largest empires ever to have existed, what their modern-day starting 11 and benches might look like, and then 3 or 4 others that cover territories that are very good at football, in an attempt to figure out, once and for all, which empire would have the best football team. Given that borders are just basically lines drawn in the dirt which have historically been very fluid, most empires don't map perfectly onto a modern-day map of the world, which makes figuring out which players could actually represent which empires a pretty grueling task at times, and it also means that I spent far longer making this video than could ever be justified in relation to how many people will actually watch it, given that only me and you, yes, that's you, the tiny number of weirdos who clicked on this, have any interest in such an obscure topic. So feel free to hit the like button and give this video a boost if you are one of those weirdos. This is a no judgment zone. Without further ado then, who could have played for 7 different empires by my count, it is time to answer the question of which empire would have the best national football team. We start with the biggest, baddest, and most sprawling empire of them all. That's right, it is the British Empire. It was the Spanish and the Portuguese who pioneered European exploration before England, France and the Netherlands got a bit jealous and established colonies all of their own. Following victories in the Anglo-Spanish War, French and Indian Wars and the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War, Britain became the preeminent colonial power in North America and the dominant empire, along with the Portuguese, in terms of transporting enslaved people from Africa to the Americas through the Atlantic slave trade. Britain lost one of its oldest, largest, and most significant colonies during the American War of Independence, turning its attention at that point to Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. But it was in 1920, barely 100 years ago, that the British Empire reached its peak in terms of landmass, ruling over 26% of the world's total area, making it by far the largest empire that has ever existed. Britain became known as the empire upon which the sun never sets, as the sun was always shining on at least one of its territories, and a total of 65 countries have claimed their independence from the British Empire, and the United Kingdom in total, including the likes of India, Zanzibar, and Tonga. Curiously, despite football, certainly in its modern codified form as we now know it, having originated in Britain before being spread around the world, many former British colonies are among the small number of countries in which football is not the most popular sport. India, Pakistan, Canada, the United States, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Australia, and arguably even the Republic of Ireland are just some examples of that, though the same certainly is not true of the likes of Egypt and Nigeria. In goal in my British Empire 11 is England number 1 Jordan Pickford, though it could just as easily have been Aaron Ramsdale or Nick Pope. At right back, Reece James starts ahead of Kyle Walker, if he's ever actually fit. John Stones partners Levi Colville at centre-back, despite the latter being as yet uncapped by England, though I suspect that is only a matter of time. And Canada's main man Alphonso Davies completes our back four, becoming the team's first non-England international. In midfield, Declan Rice partners Jude Bellingham, with Mohamed Salah on the right of a front four, Bukayo Saka on the left, Victor Osimhen up front, and England's all-time record goal scorer, Harry Kane playing just in behind him. I could easily have played Saka on the right in his favourite position, and Marcus Rashford or Phil Foden on the left, or have played Foden or Grealish as a 10 and Kane up front on his own, but Osimhen and Salah are two of the best offensive players on the planet, and even if they didn't diversify my 11 by bringing in some non-England internationals, it felt like sacrilege to leave either of them out. Andy Robertson and Luke Shaw could easily have started ahead of Davies at left back. All three are outstanding, and you can just about take your pick. As you probably noticed, 8 out of the 11 are English, largely because England just have a very good team and lots of very good players right now. But one of the reasons why the England team is so good is because of empire and the history of colonialism. Reece James is of Jamaican descent. Declan Rice's paternal grandparents, as you probably know, were from County Cork in Ireland. Jude Bellingham is mixed race and could also actually have represented Ireland, as could Harry Kane, and Bukayo Saka's parents are both Nigerian. That is just out of the 8 players that made my 11. It is a strong 11, I think you'd agree. They would probably win the World Cup so long as no other empires entered and they didn't have to take any penalties. But let's see what the second largest empire that has ever existed, the Mongol Empire, is capable of throwing at them. Having originated in modern-day Mongolia, the Mongol Empire stretched all the way from the Sea of Japan to Eastern Europe, northwards to part of the Arctic, and south into the Indian subcontinent, ruling much or all of modern-day Russia, China, Myanmar, Romania, Pakistan, Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, Armenia, and Iraq amongst others. I know what you're thinking. They don't all necessarily sound like footballing powerhouses, but there is strength in numbers, so let's see how they get on. In goal, Ukraine's Andrei Lunin gets us started, ahead of Georgi Mamachvelia and Peter Galacci, having made 11 first-team appearances for Real Madrid so far this season. At right back, quite bizarrely, we have Mario Fernandes, who is Brazilian but was naturalised in Russia and became a Russian international, therefore qualifying him as being eligible, joined by Napoli's ever-impressive South Korean centre-back, Kim Min-jae, and RB Leipzig and Hungary star Willy Orban. Meanwhile, Oleksandr Zinchenko, who is arguably the most informed left-back in the world right now, completes our backline. Russia's Darla Kuzayev is the deepest of a 3-man midfield, joined by Hungary's Dominik Szoboszlai and South Korea's Hwang In-bom. Meanwhile, the real strength in this team lies in the front three, with £89 million man Mikhailo Mudryk, Napoli's superstar Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, and longtime Tottenham favourite Son Heung-min. Now, be honest, it's better than you expected, isn't it? It is worse than the British Empire team, so it already isn't the best Empire football team, but it is decent, and could probably make a World Cup semis, and even further, if they just had that little bit more quality in midfield. That brings us to the last of our 3 biggest empires, by landmass, not population I should state, which is the good old Russian Empire of 1721 to 1917, which was at its largest in 1895, and when I say good, I mean murderous, barbaric, cruel, and exploitative like most other empires. In case there was any confusion, at no stage in this video am I advocating for the return of any of these empires, even if it would make for some really talented football teams. now that we've cleared that up, and my anti-imperial and anti-colonial credentials remain firmly intact, in goal in our Russian Empire 11 is Poland's Wojciech Szczesny. Tsarist Russia always had a bit of a head start on the massive empire front because Russia itself is so vast, but other modern-day territories once controlled by the Russian Empire include the likes of Finland, Estonia, Ukraine, Georgia, Kazakhstan, parts of the United States in the form of Alaska, and of course Poland. Hence Wojciech Szczesny's inclusion, narrowly ahead of the likes of Andrzej Lunin, who is obviously busy representing the Mongols, and Finland's Łukasz Radecki. The back four from right to left, hilariously, starts with Matty Cash, who is joined by Jan Bednarek, Jakub Kiwior, and Oleksandr Zinchenko. I can't find anyone better than the immensely talented loose cannon that is Grzegorz Krychowiak at the base of our midfield, who has his compatriot Piotr Zielinski ahead of him, Armenia's Henrik Mkhitaryan to his right, and Georgia's Kvicha Kvaratskhelia making his second appearance in this video already to his left. Up front, it is an all-Polish affair of Juventus's Arkadiusz Milik, and the star of this side, Barcelona's Robert Lewandowski. Mikhailo Mudryk just misses out, along with Russian duo Alexander Golovin and Alexei Miranchuk, which means that not a single Russian features in the starting 11 of my Russian Empire 11, which, on the balance of things, I would say is roughly equal in strength to our Mongol Empire 11. Those are the big three done and dusted, but what about those who weren't quite as vast, but were concentrated in football hotspots? My first port of call was the Spanish Empire, which itself began in the port city of Melilla in northern Africa in the 1490s, which remains a tiny coastal enclave of Spanish territory within Morocco to this day. The Spanish Empire expanded to include modern-day Argentina, Belgium, Spain, and the Netherlands, which are the countries that we're really interested in, along with a string of others. In goal for my Spanish Empire 11 is Thibaut Courtois, who sees off competition from Gianluigi Donnarumma and Emi Martinez for the number 1 shirt, and he has João Cancelo, Ruben Dias, Virgil van Dijk and Nuno Mendes ahead of him in an outstanding backline. Pedro Porro, Alejandro Balde, Jordi Alba, Jose Haya, Aymeric Laporte, Matthias de Ligt, Ronald Araujo, Nathan Ake and Jose Jimenez could all stake claims to start, but I had to whittle it down to just 4 of them. The midfield is even more competitive, remarkably, where Rodri, Kevin De Bruyne and Federico Valverde start, with Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Frenkie de Jong, Gavi, Pedri, Enzo Fernandez, Sergio Busquets and João Polina among their extremely talented deputies, and finally you have got Lionel Messi on the right, Rafael Leao on the left, and in the end I settled for Julian Alvarez through the middle. It could have been João Felix, Lautaro Martinez, Romelu Lukaku, Darwin Núñez, or even Ciro Immobile, who hails from the south of Italy that was conquered by the Spanish, but I figured that Alvarez would bag the most goals in this 11, unless Lukaku was able to roll back the years and was at his absolute vintage best. That is a pretty stunning team, but before you call the contest as being over already, what about Spain's old neighbours and foes the Portuguese? Portugal colonised modern-day Mozambique, Macau, Nagasaki, Angola and parts of India, but it is really Brazil that is crucial from a football perspective, and my, effectively, combined Portuguese and Brazilian 11 features Alisson in goal, João Cancelo at right back, Nuno Mendes at left back, and Ruben Dias and Thiago Silva at centre back. Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes sitting in midfield, with Bernardo Silva ahead of them, and a front three of Neymar, Vinicius Jr., and Gabriel Jesus. That still leaves the likes of Ederson, Marquinhos, João Polina, Rafael Leao, Rafinha, João Felix, and perhaps most notably of all, Gabriel Martinelli, waiting in the wings. That is a phenomenal team with remarkable depth, perhaps not quite as strong as the Spanish Empire, but on par with the British Empire, if not slightly stronger. The defence is much more formidable, though with Kane and Osimhen, the British Empire do have better central striking options than the Portuguese Empire do with Gabriel Jesus and João Felix. It is mental that this is my actual job. Given the strength and depth that the French have, just on their own right now, combined with their former territories in Africa, it would seem remiss not to give them a mention. For the French Empire, I have got Mike Maignan in goal, a back four of Achraf Hakimi, Jules Koundé, Raphael Varane and Theo Hernandez, Aurelien Tchouameni at the base of our midfield, Andre Frank Zambo-Anguissa and Eduardo Camavinga either side, and only narrowly ahead of him, with Antoine Griezmann as a 10, and Karim Benzema and Kylian Mbappe up front. The likes of Bono, Koulibaly, Matip, Kessié, Ziyech, Amrabat, Mane and Mahrez, all from former French colonies, just miss out. Meanwhile, an informed Paul Pogba or N'Golo Kante would probably break back into the starting 11. There you have 6 infamous empires and 6 sensational football teams. But there is one empire that eclipses them all, and that is none other than the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire ruled over most of Europe for 1,000 years, as well as large parts of Western Asia and North Africa. That makes our Roman Empire 11 virtually a European 11, with the exception of Northern and Eastern Europe, with added depth from elsewhere. Consequently, in goal in my Roman Empire 11, I have got Thibaut Courtois, ahead of the likes of Manuel Neuer, Marc-Andre ter Stegen, Gianluigi Donnarumma, Mike Maignan, and Jordan Pickford. João Cancelo starts at right back, again, with David Alaba at left back, a centre-back partnership of Ruben Dias and Raphael Varane, with Joshua Kimmich sitting in midfield, Luka Modric and Kevin De Bruyne ahead of him, Bukayo Saka on the right, Kylian Mbappe on the left, and Harry Kane through the middle. That still leaves out the likes of Virgil van Dijk, Aymeric Laporte, Reece James, Kyle Walker, John Stones, Achraf Hakimi, Theo Hernandez, Bernardo Silva, Rodri, Gavi, Pedri, Salah, Griezmann, Rashford, Sane, De Jong, Verratti, Foden, Bellingham, and many, many more. The most notable omission of all, though, is probably Karim Benzema, who I'd imagine most people would start ahead of Harry Kane, but I wouldn't. Hence why I haven't. So there you have it then. The answer to which empire would have the best football team is almost certainly the Roman Empire, followed by the Spanish Empire, and then probably the British and the Portuguese. If this isn't the most useless thing that you watched today, then I can only assume that you're an Everton fan. Actually, that is a little bit unfair. Not on Everton, who are quite useless, though. I wouldn't want to predict tonight's game given Spurs' own recent uselessness, but on this video, which I reckon if taught to children would be a pretty handy way of teaching kids, or those interested in football at least, which empires ruled over which modern-day territories. So, the Mongol Empire? Well, Mudryk on the right and Son up top, so it stretched from Ukraine to Korea. You know, it's not bad, is it? I'm not saying that the learning should stop there, to be clear, but you can just sort of segue from Heung-min Son into the extraordinary brutal campaigns of conquest led by Genghis Khan. Honestly, I am wasted on football YouTube. If I'd entered the educational space, I would be a millionaire by now. Anyway, that is it for today's lesson. There is no school tomorrow and no homework. I will see you in 2 days, but in return for my extraordinary generosity, you have to hit the like button and subscribe to both this and my backup channel, both of which will appear on your screens imminently. Thank you all for watching, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and feel free to follow me on Twitter or Instagram via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.